Hello everyone and welcome along to the very first Recruitment Masterclass. My name is Joe Wild and I'm a Recruitment and Employment Changes Manager here in the Office of Human Resources. Joining me today is Rowan Grundy, who is a Talent Acquisition Advisor in our Talent Acquisition team. So before we start, it's a little disclaimer. This is not our normal jobs being recorded, so if we do burst out laughing or we mess up along the way, just bear with us. So before we get started, Rowan is going to talk to us about what the Recruitment Masterclasses are all about.
Thanks, Joe. So this is the launch of the Recruiters Network and our all-new Recruitment Masterclasses. The network is intended to be a space where we can send you, our hiring managers, news, updates and any other recruitment-related information that we think will be of interest to you. So as part of that, we're also bringing you the Recruitment Masterclass. During these sessions, we'll look at a range of topics from the world of recruitment. These will be designed to bring you all of the current trends, insights and best practice so that next time you recruit, you know that you're right up to date. Upcoming sessions will cover areas such as using social media to attract the best talent, as well as creating a great candidate experience and why that is so important, to how we overcome unconscious bias in our recruitment practices to build high-performing, diverse workforces.
Fab. So thinking about today's session, what we're going to be covering?
Well, we will have a look at the Isle of Man Public Service People Strategy to find out where all this has come from. And the question on everyone's lips, what's changed in recruitment? And most importantly, why does it matter? And that'll cover the candidate-driven market and how that's changed how we approach recruitment, how technology's changed recruitment, and finally a quick look at our USP, which is our unique selling proposition and employer brand.
Okay, so we've got loads of good stuff coming up. You just mentioned there about the public service people strategy. Could you just take us through how what we're doing now in this masterclass, how that fits in with the people strategy?
Yeah, of course. So one area in our remit as a talent acquisition service is the attract and hire work stream of the Isle of Man Public Service people strategy. So recruitment falls into this, and some of the outcomes that we have are to have a reputation as an employer of choice in a global market, attractive multimedia campaigns that highlight the culture and benefits that we offer people who highly recommend us as a great place to work, competitive methods for finding the best talent, and bespoke strategies for hard to recruit areas.
Yeah, it's so important that we're thinking about those things. So where do the masterclasses come into that?
Well, it's you guys, the people who are listening, the hiring managers, who are really important to the success of these targets. And that's really why we've set up the Recruiters Network and the Recruitment Masterclasses, so that as hiring managers, you don't just know the basics of recruitment, but you're really up to date with everything you need to know to make sure that you get the best people into your teams when recruiting.
Absolutely, it's so true. After all, you know your teams, you know your roles the best. So we want to do everything that we can do to support you.
Exactly. So today's session is about what's changed in recruitment. So Joe, what has changed?
Yes, so much has changed in recruitment, even in the last 5 years since I joined government. The recruitment market has switched from being employer-led to candidate-driven. As well, we've seen technology that has transformed the way that we engage with candidates during the recruitment process.
Okay, why does that matter though? How does that affect us and the way we do things?
Well, Rowan, I've got some stats for you. These stats we've got from the business psychologist criterion. So the stats show employers are finding there to be a talent shortage in the current market. Actually, 72% of them state they're having a difficult time finding skilled candidates for their openings. 60% of job seekers now say that a poor hiring experience would put them off joining the company. Candidates are also using social media more frequently to search and apply for jobs, with almost 60% of them using it to research companies before applying to them. And finally, 84% of businesses are now using some form of social channel to aid their recruitment.
So we really are a long way away from when we used to just place an advert in the Courier and wait for the applications to come pouring in, aren't we? It's a candidates market out there and competition for talent is fierce.
I would say one of the biggest changes has been the internet. Would you agree, Rowan?
Absolutely. The internet has completely changed the face of job hunting. Candidates can now easily compare jobs. They can check out a competition at the touch of a button. They can look at information about the organisation. They can even look at managers' profiles on social media sites such as LinkedIn.
So, a question for you, Rowan.
Okay.
Do you think this has changed candidates' expectations and what they're looking for as they look through jobs and go through that recruitment process?
Yes, definitely. Because of this ease, speed and immediacy, candidates expect the same service from us as recruiters as they do from other service providers such as the retail industry. So as a candidate, I expect my questions to be answered straight away, that things will happen quickly, that I'll be kept up to date at each stage of the process, and I won't be left waiting with no information. I also expect that I'll be able to contact a real person when I need to.
Yeah. So with all that in mind, what does that mean for the likes of you and I and for everyone that's listening as recruiters?
Well, it means that the candidate is king or queen, obviously.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. We've gone from expecting candidates to come to us to having to become marketers to attract the talent and skills that we want and need. That means we've got to focus our adverts to what's in it for the candidate rather than what do we want from candidates. And all of this is part of what we call the candidate experience. The candidate experience is so important, isn't it, Rowan?
Yeah, absolutely. So, for instance, a good candidate experience for a successful candidate, so someone who has been kept in touch with, had their questions answered quickly and knows what to expect when they start their job, means an engaged and prepared employee joining our organisation.
Yeah, and even for for candidates who are unsuccessful, we should be treating our candidates as you would a customer in order to give them the best possible experience. Because we should treat all candidates as potential future employees, even if they're not right now. And you know what it's like on our lovely little island. People do talk, and we want people to speak positively about that experience, even if they didn't get the job.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things I think that's great about social media and mobile technology in general is that it makes contact with their prospective line manager potentially easier and quicker, and as well as taking some of that historic formality of these kind of interactions, again, which also raises the candidate engagement.
And I think as well, another positive outcome is a good candidate experience is that it supports that positive employer brand. And we'll touch on that a little bit later on, I think, Rowan.
Yes, we certainly will.
Okay, so next we're going to talk about reach, which is something that's quite close to my heart and something that I've always been interested in. And I guess simply put, reach is the number of people that your advert's reached. It's who's seen your job. And for Isle of Man public service roles, our reach is getting bigger and bigger with the evolution of social media and technology.
Yeah, definitely. I think obviously the use of the internet and social media is great because we reach a lot more people than we did before. Those things came along, it used to be quite localised, but now, people anywhere in the world can see our adverts.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know in the sourcing team, we try our best to target the jobs, especially the hard to recruit ones. But in reality, it's you guys, the hiring managers, who are best placed to know your own industry and know the types of people who you want to apply for your vacancies.
Exactly, and I think the more we in HR can work together with you guys, the hiring managers, the better on this thing really. So when you're as a hiring manager, when you're recruiting, if you can be thinking about where are my candidates, where do they look for jobs, what kind of groups or social media networks can we target with content to raise the profile of the department or the division, even not necessarily even job specific, but just kind of that overall, how can we be reaching people? We kind of need to know how to get this advert that we're putting out there in front of the right people. And one of the good things about social media is that we're able to build networks on social media, things like Facebook and LinkedIn, and that can really help with this kind of thing. And we will actually be doing a future recruitment masterclass specifically on this subject, so watch out for that.
Right. But yeah, it's like we said before, the role of the recruiter really is developing into basically marketing, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
So I'm thinking about that. We can advertise online, you can use social media as well as other ways to boost our reach online. But we can also use these platforms to tailor our reach as well, and that is where you as a hiring manager, your knowledge of that sector will really help us. So Rowan, we love a stat.
We do.
So I have some stats here from Glassdoor.
Okay.
So how much of the UK population do you think have access to the internet?
Ooh, that's tricky. I would say a lot.
Yeah, definitely. So it's actually 92%.
Wow.
That's pretty high, isn't it?
Yeah,
So,
it is.
also, so over 80% of people now use their smartphones to access the internet and emails. I'm definitely one of those. Are you?
Yeah, absolutely. All the time.
85% of these access the internet at least once a day. Yep. 81% of the UK population has a mobile phone, which account for the majority of their internet access, and the majority of social media users have never used a PC to access the internet.
Wow, that's interesting,
crazy,
isn't it?
Good. And finally, 48% of the UK population have active social media accounts, which is growing, and these 48% spend an average of 1.5 hours a day on social media. Interesting. I actually probably spend more.
Yeah, I would say I probably spend more than that on average. Well, I take your stat and I raise you.
Oh.
CMD Recruitment say that 4 in 5 job seekers research companies' online reviews and ratings when deciding whether or not to apply for a job. Interesting. And 84% of job seekers say that a company's reputation is crucial when deciding where to apply for a job. So that is definitely something to bear in mind when we're recruiting. But this also means that as recruiters, we can actually use the internet and social media for advertising, get the benefit from that. So, candidates can like, comment and share on Facebook adverts. That positive traffic on social media broadens the reach of our adverts, as we talked about before. But, kind of more positive reactions and especially shares that we can get, especially when it's within the right group of people, the more potential candidates we can reach.
Yeah, definitely. And we see a lot on our Facebook page, people tagging their friends when they see their jobs, think, oh, this would be good for you, tag them in it.
That's really
Which
great,
again, all of that interaction boosts our post and boosts, where people that see it. So now there are loads of platforms where we can advertise our posts, in slightly different formats, which makes it possible for us to really tailor our campaigns in order to sell those vacancies or sell your vacancies. We currently advertise on our public service couriers vacancies website. We use Facebook, we use LinkedIn. We do use Twitter. It's more of an automated feed. We don't really do much with it.
Okay.
We also have an Instagram presence. Although we don't use it for advertising at present, we're sort of trying to learn our way around it at the minute. But it's more about raising the profile of the public service. We want that to be focused more on people rather than pushing out jobs all the time.
Yeah.
It is a bit OHR heavy at the present. We're just using the talent that we've got here.
Yeah.
But if there's anyone, any budding Instagrammers or influencers, as they call them, if anyone's interested in having a go on there, just let us know.
Yeah, that'd be great. The more content on there, the better, isn't it?
Yes,
really?
definitely. In the sourcing team, we found that a clever use of keywords, hashtags, and groups, this gives us the opportunity to really target down those adverts to specific industries or employment groups. But again, as we said before, the more that you as hiring managers can help us with this, the better this targeting will be.
And another thing to think about is online searches. Obviously, this can work both ways, and I think we probably think about this more from the point of view of looking for information on potential candidates. But how often do we actually think about our own online profile, either our kind of personal, professional online profile, or that of the department or division that you work in? So, for instance, have a think about what comes up in a popular search engine search when the candidate puts your department or division in there. Are there ways that we can raise the profile of your division or your team, such as why it's such a great place to work, what your values are, what the department culture is like, what makes you stand out from your UK equivalents? And these questions aren't necessarily recruitment specific, but this is all stuff that potential candidates want to know about if they're going to consider coming to work for you now or in the future. So really, it's good to have a think about these things, candidates can search online for information about your department and division. And do remember that stat from before, Joe, 84% of job seekers say a company's reputation really matters to them.
So that was us looking at the wider technology that's out there to use. And let's have a little think about what we've got internally here in Alman Government in terms of technology. And I'm thinking about the likes of JobTrain and PIP. Those systems have helped us digitise the recruitment process and enabled us to streamline it down, to take all the stuff out that we don't need to do and really speed it up for our hiring managers, for our candidates and for us here in HR as well. Although we know there's always room for improvement. We are continually looking for more ways to improve that process for everyone that's using those systems.
Yeah, and technology is making it easier for us to connect with off-island candidates as well, you know, kind of video conferencing. You know, so much has changed because of technology.
Yes, definitely. You know, I think we've seen that through, you know, lockdown and COVID-19, ways to stay in touch with each other. So we had, you know, things like Microsoft Teams and all that. Definitely saw that technology you know, keep everyone connected through that time.
Yeah.
Oh, this looks like one of Rowan's choice of pictures.
I had to get some cute fluffy animals in there somewhere.
Okay, so with all these changes and that competitive labour market that we've mentioned before, how do we make our jobs stand out above the clamour? I understand the picture now, Rowan.
See, there's method in my madness. So nowadays, as we said earlier, HR, we're tending to use kind of well-known marketing models for recruitment. So things such as USP, which you've probably heard of before, the unique selling proposition. So that's thinking about, from your point of view as a hiring manager for the public service, you know, what is your USP for your area? So think about it in this way. People love stories. So what are you about? What is it that your service provides that's special or important or interesting? How does the role that you're advertising fit into that story? People care about what they're going to be involved with. So, you know, you can talk about specific projects that they'll be involved with, initiatives, even the values or the culture of your area in a way that candidates can see themselves being involved in that. Then you're much more likely to get their kind of buy-in and engagement. So really think about what is it about your job that's different from all the other jobs in that sector or industry.
And I guess from hearing that, you know, it does sound quite obvious, but when you start thinking about it, really it is. It's quite complex, especially when it's a role that you know inside out.
Yeah, definitely. I think, you know, when you know a job really, really well, it's hard to see it from an outsider's perspective. One of the things that I find really helpful, and you guys out there might find helpful, is to think about what this role would look like somewhere else, so in a different location, for instance, like in the UK, or a different organisation in the private sector, for example. You know, so how does your job differ from a similar kind of role elsewhere, and what makes it unique, what's great about it, and what would make the role really appeal to somebody. And remember, you know, you personally might not see that much potential in a role, but thinking about it from the point of somebody else who would really like the job can help you see the kind of features and benefits of that role.
Okay, so the last thing we're going to talk about today is employer brand. And when we talk about employer branding, we don't just mean, you know, what colour your fonts are, what logos you use. It's more than that. Yeah,
absolutely. And you might not necessarily think of yourself as a hiring manager, your area having a specific employer brand, but actually we have an employer brand whether we like it or not. Think about when we talked earlier about, you know, what comes up in a Google search for your department or area. Think about your reputation your department has on the island, the online presence that you have, what people say about you. All of this makes up your employer brand. And another big element of it is the people that work for your department or division, the people that work in your team. You know, what they say about working there is a really big part of employer brand. You know, our team members of the team can be really great brand ambassadors. So don't be afraid to involve team members in your recruitment. You know, having a team member talking about the great development they've had, or what they love about their job and why their job is important, is a really great way of attracting other people to to your vacancy. So we've used statements from team members, or they can go in a video. Lots of people actually really enjoy doing that, and it's a great way to build engagement. But any way that you can think of to get your message out there is brilliant, and we can really help with that.
Yeah, definitely. And we always see with the employee videos that we put on Facebook, the engagement of those posts compared to the post of just a stock image on it goes through the roof. When people see someone that they recognise, they'll tag them in it, and normally they'll go and share the video themselves. So the reach that we get from that is phenomenal. So here in OHR, we think that the best employer brand, it should really connect with both the internal and external audiences. It should showcase your organisation as being expert and trusted. It should promote a feeling of belonging and being a part of something. It should be focused on health and well-being. And finally, it should be conscious of perceptions and feelings about the organisation, both inside and out. So these things need to be present, not just through adverts, but at every interaction with the candidate. Remember, at the end of the day, they are a customer, and this needs to be sort of authentic and coherent. There's no point in trying to promote a modern, or as Rome would call a hip, fresh employer brand if all your department literature is frumpy and old-fashioned. And don't sell yourself on being diverse and innovative if that's not the case. Don't tell the public something about your department that isn't really true.
But on the other side, if you have a great culture, if you really live your values, if well-being is really important, if your team really enjoy what they do, let's shout about it. Your brand should be about what you do, who you are, and how you connect with your people. So by being clear, open, honest and authentic, potential candidates are able to kind of self-select themselves. And remember, when we're recruiting, we should be recruiting for the culture that we want, not necessarily the culture we have at the moment.
Okay, so that brings us to the end of this recruitment masterclass. Hopefully, it's given you a lot to think about for when you next want to recruit. Is there anything you want to add, Rowan, before we go?
Only to say thanks for your time, everyone, and I really hope that this has been helpful. And remember that Joe and I and the rest of the team are always here to support you with your recruitment, so do get in touch with us. You can see our contact details on the screen there. There will be more recruitment masterclasses coming your way in the future, so do keep an eye out for them. And in the meantime, happy recruiting!